Today we have some fun with sloth and gluttony. Haven't you been told you're not working hard enough, that you just want things handed to you while you sit around and do nothing? Isn't that the trope? That you just need to work harder and that if you're not making it, it's your fault? Mohamad Safa says, people aren't going hungry because we cannot feed the poor. People are going hungry because we cannot satisfy the rich. Billionaires, politicians roll around in power and money, working to maintain systems that keep you down, and they blame you for being lazy. Let's deconstruct this and talk today about who is really full of sloth and gluttony and free our hearts to be truly happy.
Would it be okay if I were to tell you that I am afraid someday? So I call you up and you call me down. Would it be okay?
Well, hello and welcome to the FreedHearts podcast. My name is Robert Cottrell, and I'm here as always with
Susan Cottrell.
Hi.
Hi.
Beloved, don't forget to connect with us at freedhearts.org. Please follow this podcast wherever you're listening to it, your favorite place to listen to podcasts. And please rate us 5 stars if you would. That means a lot, more than you know. And again, thanks. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for being here with us every week. We really appreciate it. We've talked about pride and greed and lust and envy and wrath. What a list. And we want to finish up this deconstruction of the 7 deadly sins with what's left: sloth, laziness, and gluttony. Ooh. Oh, how fun. We'll hit these from their own angle, but spoiler here, the main point is the same, that the MO of people in power is to shame the people that they have power over for the very things that they do.
Yeah.
It's all about projecting. And the contempt they teach against you is a projection of their contempt for themselves.
Yeah. I discovered something about lust that's relevant to our conversation this week, but also it's relevant to our recent conversation about lust. We talked in depth 2 weeks ago about how lust being blame shifted onto you by flamingly gay closeted priests in the Vatican. And the issue, of course, is not that they're flamingly gay closeted priests, but that they're closeted and that they're projecting their shame onto you. Yeah. Also, though, I don't think we stressed enough that Protestant pastors shame just as much, whether their closet has rainbows in it or skeletons in it of affairs and sexual abuse toward women, children, teenagers, all the things that happen when people have too much power, unlimited power, and no accountability. You already know that. I want to connect the dots that these men, and it is primarily men, as they project their overwhelming shame to preach sexual purity and purity culture and all of that they have made lust into this very big deal. It's not. It's in fact, it's usually just sexual desire itself that has been made into a very big deal of lust by a church committed to shame over a long, long time. Remember that natural relations, and this is unnatural or natural only meant, or it meant specifically, is procreative.
In the Bible you're talking about.
In the Bible.
Right.
If you're not actively seeking to get pregnant, then the sex is unnatural. Really?
Yeah.
So think of that when you think of unnatural sex. It's just a lost cause. Okay. But to turn lust or any sexual desire, basically, you're not even supposed to like it when you're trying to get pregnant, according to the Bible, really. But to turn that into a very big deal is a red herring. And here's a good visual to show this. So I saw Poor Things with Emma Stone. Really great. Loved it. And she is always fantastic. And she did, there was a scene there where she said, I need to be nude for this. And the director's like, really? Are you sure about that? And she said, yeah, the character calls for this. And she was right when you watch the movie. So she does some nude scenes in there. And she does it with no shame. And I love that. I love that. And Jennifer Lawrence, too, they said when she did a movie she was sitting on the, during lunch break or whatever, nude, and no shame about it. And I love that. I don't know that I would have loved it a while back, but I've really gotten where I see the beauty of that. And the point, and so Emma Stone, and when she's being interviewed, people kind of ask her about the nudity. And she said, I'm happy to talk about that. And I have no shame about it. But that seems to be focused on more than how did you develop this character?
Right.
How did you find all the things you do as an actor to get this the way you got it?
Well, part of that has been amplified and solidified in our generation, our kids' generation, from the purity culture teaching.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And how that said that those sexual desires are wrong.
Right. Exactly.
Or must be limited and put in this box, that kind of thing.
Yes, exactly. And the point is that whatever shame you carry, sexual or otherwise, it's not yours. It's not from God, for sure. It doesn't belong to you. It never should have come to you. It was delivered to the wrong address. We'll tell you where it belongs in a second. But it never should have been a very big deal placed on you. So throw it away, and I'll give you something to replace it with. Here's the thing. Your body is extraordinary. It's capable of passionate love and passionate pleasure. It's God-given that it responds to touch and to thought and to love. And that's a gift, not a curse. It is a joy, not a shame. Imagine if your body just didn't respond. That would not be fun.
Well, you know what? And as you say that, I know you've talked to people, we've heard from people that struggle with that because of all the shame and guilt and the purity culture that was taught.
And the, videos they've had to watch of other, whatever.
Sure.
To make them sexually dysfunctional, basically.
It becomes a curse, not a gift.
They make it into a curse. I didn't see it before. The church that does this is the ex-gay whatever makes it a curse.
And not just ex-gay though,
sexuality.
too. It's that purity culture was across the board. Yes.
Makes sex a curse when it is a gift. So I'm trying to say, here, shove that thing aside. This is the gift that your sexuality, your body is a gift.
It's a joy, not a shame.
That's right. When you hear an accusation of lust, turn it back on the person accusing you and say, no, thank you. And when you hear that accusation of shame, you can just smile knowingly and think, I know what they're dealing with because it's true, or it wouldn't be such a very big deal. They're projecting like a projector. A movie projector projects the film inside the projector. It has nothing to do with the screen it's projecting onto. So that's what's happening when they talk to you about lust. So lust means craving, and it's related to the word for luxury or excess. Luxury originally meant lechery, rankness, offensiveness because of its excess. Wow. Then it shifted, as words do, to mean more like adultery, and eventually it came to mean a sumptuous environment like luxury we think of today. Isn't that interesting? So big church, it is to me, I'm a word nerd. Okay, but big church pastors, priests, the Vatican, the top 1%, all live sumptuous lives of excessive, offensive luxury. That's gluttony and the original meaning of lust. But they accuse you of lust for what you do with your body. Yeah, ironic. But that's their playbook, to blame you for what they do. However, they have to twist it. So they accuse you of lust or gluttony when they're swimming in it. And likewise, they accuse you of laziness. Have you heard that one? What does that have to do with you? Who's working your heart out? Yeah. You or not, but you're not lazy.
Yeah. I mean, how laziness is one of the 7 deadly sins, but not viciousness, cruelty, blaming, judging, excommunicating people because you disagree with them or just think they deserve it, denying people basic humanity. I don't know how those didn't make the list.
Right, but laziness did.
Yeah.
That's a great question. And our children in our community here, you all, have been told you're not working hard enough and that you just want things handed to you while you sit around and do nothing. Isn't that the trope? That you just need to work harder to make a living with multiple side hustles. And if you complain about how hard it all seems to be, it comes back on you to just work harder to be straight, pray harder. And if you're not making it, it's your fault. That's the trope. I really dislike that.
Yeah. To shame laziness is woven into a worker bee society.
Yes.
You know, with a handful of queen bees who are the wealthy and powerful, while the worker bees do the actual work.
Yeah, exactly.
And then those in power tell the worker bee, don't complain. Never mind about who gets all the honey. Just do your work.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't think that actual queen bees, like the insect, are getting billions while the workers are denied basic.
Billions of honey.
Right. While the workers are denied anything.
That's true.
Basic benefits. That's the gluttony problem.
I mean, yeah. I mean, billionaire wealth. Billionaire wealth. I don't know how your wealth is, but let me tell you about the billionaire wealth.
Because we know.
Since the pandemic is up 88%. Damn. This is according to inequality.org. I mean, these billionaires could write a check for nearly $4,000 for every person in this country, for each of the 330 plus million people who live in the U.S., parents and children, and they'd still have more than they had before the pandemic started.
Oh my gosh, it's criminal.
But Congress said we can't afford things like that.
We know where the money is. Just go get it.
Yep.
Those laws we wrote, that our lawmakers and politicians wrote, that allow the rich to become multi-billionaires
on the backs of those they oppress.
The rest of us, those laws were written by humans. They can be changed.
Right. And don't forget the quote that we did a couple of weeks ago from Mohamad Safa that said, people aren't going hungry because we cannot feed the poor. People are going hungry because we cannot satisfy the rich.
Exactly. And those who can't be satisfied, that's the very definition of gluttony.
Yep.
How much can a person spend anyway? It would not affect the 1% in the least to give each person a check. Not in the least would it affect their day to day, but it would affect the 90% very much.
Yeah, there are other quotes like that talk about that the top wealthy people could do things like end hunger or erase all kinds of things, and
support all the nonprofits that are doing great work.
Yeah, it wouldn't impact their bottom line at all.
Yeah.
But they don't. They hoard it and they keep it on. So why are we saying all this? Okay, when our commitment is to give you hope, to deconstruct the lies that keep you locked up and afraid, to free you from the lies and fears and the accusing voice in your head.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I'm a rose-colored glasses kind of person. I always find the gift in any situation. I do. And I'm sure many of you feel that way. And if you're not that person, someone near you is. We need hope to keep going. We must believe that good things are ahead.
Yeah. And like we talked last week, we need to name what's going on around us. Remember what we said about that? It's to delegitimize it.
Yes.
We need to name it because the truth of the extraction economy is difficult. But the delegitimization of that, the truth can set us free. Yeah. And the truth that it's not you, it's not us here.
Yeah, and millennials have been told they're not doing enough. But in fact, you've worked very hard to make your life work. I want to name that too. You work hard, including the downtimes of being exhausted and binging the shows and playing your games and sleeping in, whatever self-care you do, including all that. You have a good heart, remember, and you're doing the best you can do with what you have. And you're doing what you can to make your life work. And for many of you, things are coming together, which is fantastic. But if not, we don't want you to think it's you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and as Scott Galloway said in that TED Talk, for the first time in U.S.'s history, a 30-year-old is no longer doing as well as their parents were doing at 30. He said, this is a breakdown of the fundamental agreement we have with any society, and it creates rage and shame. That rage and shame. I really hearkened to that when he said that. It made sense to me.
And then you're shamed for having your rage.
For having rage and shame. They get angry at you and shame you for your rage and shame. But that rage and shame that you may feel, but also try to suppress because it isn't good for you in the long run. You came by that honestly.
Absolutely.
And when you complain about the inequities and the gluttony, the lust at the top, they blame you for being lazy. That's a kick in the butt. It's the epitome of the teaching of contempt. Contempt for our children, contempt for everyone, but the tiny little pinpoint of privileged people.
Absolutely. I mean, that someone had said something. Well, yes, that's right. If you think about who they want us angry at, it's the person on the other side of the issue. It's the immigrant that, quote, stole your job instead of the system that is bringing about that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's they get us angry at each other, so we don't have any time or any effort to be angry at them. And again, that's why we're trying to shed light on this, to delegitimize it, to put it on your radar.
And we have to find our own beach, our own zen, our own peaceful place.
Some of our kids have said, I feel like I just have to keep my head down and stay in my bubble.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes we feel that way too. And you are in our bubble, by the way, that we have to just keep doing what we can do in our own lives.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, you have to find your own beach. You have to find your zen, and understanding and knowing that the cards are stacked in this moment in history.
Yeah.
But the more we delegitimize it, the more we shine light on it, the more things can change.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk about another
resource.
There's a very good book called it's by Alyssa Quart, called Bootstrapped: Liberating Ourselves from the American Dream. And it really takes dead aim at this idea that we just need to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, a ridiculous notion, and was first written as a ridiculous notion. It's physically impossible to do. But this book shows how that idea is just part of our soil now. It was never true that people pull themselves up. Nobody is self-made. That's an impossibility. So Carl Sagan, the wonderful astronomer and scientist, maybe an earlier iteration of Neil deGrasse Tyson, he talked about the idea of making an apple pie from scratch. He said, if you want to make an apple pie from scratch, first you have to create the universe. I love that.
That's true. That's a good example.
Yeah. Or if you want to be a self-made person, first you have to create the universe. Or as Alyssa Quart, who wrote Bootstrap, says, if you think you're self-made, call your mother. Love it.
Love it. Yeah. I mean, this idea, I think, that we're all the product of our own effort is certainly woven into our fiber as a culture.
It is.
You know, our capitalistic society says that if you work hard enough, just work hard enough, you'll make it, that anybody can make it. And if you don't, it's really because you didn't work hard enough, or you're not smart enough, or you didn't have enough side hustles.
Right.
And that is not true.
Right.
Our system has been skewed toward the rich. And over the past few years, more so than ever, and more evident than ever, you know, and it's been done that boldly without even an apology to make it really difficult for the average person, while the mega wealthy accumulate money literally in their sleep.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it's not that those billionaires don't work. Many of them do. But they don't work a billion times harder than you.
Right.
That's not even possible.
Right.
And there's an article.
Oh, you never share resources. Thank you for sharing this resource.
There's an article, and I don't mean to overload you with references here. And if you want, email me and I'll send you the references. But there's an article by Emma Barker from January 17th, 2017 called Why Millennials Want to Quit Everything. And the tagline says, if we're going to struggle no matter what we do, we might as well live good lives. And it's kind of a healthy alternative to the risky behavior thing, that if I'm never going to be good enough anyway, I might as well engage in risky behaviors. Why even care? This is a much better alternative. If we're going to struggle no matter what we do, we might as well live good lives, might as well find our own zen, might as well be in the relationships that build us up, might as well love the person we love, find our own people, love ourselves and others. By the way, the Bible supports everything we're saying here. Remember that sin of sodomy? Remember that? About gay men having sex? No.
Nope.
No, it wasn't about gay men having sex. Ezekiel 16:49, for those keeping score at home, says, this was the guilt of your sister.
Let's emphasize this. This was the guilt.
Was the guilt of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters were arrogant, overfed, and complacent. They had arrogance, plenty of food, and carefree ease, but they did not help the poor and needy that suffered outside their door. Does that sound like America today? With the same church that fractures 6 verses to condemn queer people, but ignores the 300 verses that tell them to care for the poor and needy. But it's the same reason they call you lazy, to divert responsibility from themselves and your desire to have a job that pays you a decent wage, health care, money to pay back that monstrous student debt if you have it, to pay for child care, to take care of your child if you have it. That is a valid need.
Yeah.
In our old apartment, we got to know our neighbors, Fran and Gary, who were both blind. And so they've had challenges that we can't even imagine. And Gary said he was walking along the sidewalk when some guy walked up to him and said, have you heard the good news of the gospel? And Gary had experience with churches, and he just sort of exasperated. He said, when was the last time you fed somebody? Whew, man, like, when did you last put your money where your mouth is? And the guy said, oh, I'm so convicted. I'm going to do that right now, which I love.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So in our quest to give you hope, what is our hope here? What is our hope? It's to encourage you that you're not alone. You are not alone. What you're going through, lots of people are going through. This whole situation, this landmine that is in the U.S. today, is not your fault. You didn't cause it, and you're not lacking if you haven't been able to navigate it the way you hoped you would. And whatever has been leveled at you, whatever you've been told are your shortcomings or sins or not enoughness, is actually not about you at all. You've been blamed for things that those in power, hear me now, you've been blamed and shamed for things those in power don't want to take responsibility for. So as you look at any accusations against you, consider the source. Remember, it's all a projection of your accuser, what they've internalized, and it does not belong to you, beloved. You can lift it all off your shoulders, lay it aside, and sashay away.
So here's another quote for you from Sarah Landon. She said, shame is the heaviest human emotion. When you continue to tell yourself stories about something terrible that happened when you were a child, or some mistake you made, the awful thing you did to someone or that they did to you. When you continue to nurture such fears, you are as far as you can be from the truth of who you are. Wow. When you keep reliving that shame, you're as far as you can be from the truth of who you are. So even as we name what's happening, we can say, it is what it is. Make the change where you can and let go of what you can't change. And the shame and the fear is what we want to lift off your shoulders.
Yes.
We want to highlight your magnificence as a human being and encourage you to press into your magnificence, to hold it foremost in your heart. And there was a note from the universe from Mike Dooley, who those are wonderful. You can sign up for 1 minute personalized notes free in your inbox. And his recent note said, just to be extra clear, Susan, there's absolutely no connection between the global economy and inflation and your freedom to think as you please. Nor is there any connection between either and my ability to shock and delight suddenly and without warning. I think that pretty much takes care of everything, the universe. I love that. It's true.
Yeah.
It doesn't change your relationship to the universe. So you've got to just let it go. Mommy says here, let it go.
And you know, I heard someone else talk about this, but I found it so so thought-provoking that if you were to choose to live any time in history, I mean, I think most of us would choose now. I think it was a BBC article that says, never in history have we had longer lives, better lives, more access to our humanity. The likelihood of a violent death has never been lower. On average, we are better educated than ever, and childhood mortality has plummeted, and the last few decades have brought remarkable success in tackling global poverty.
Wow.
You know, and that's good news. I mean,
that's great news.
But see, the issue is back in the day, when I had to walk uphill 14.
Okay.
There was no mass. It wasn't a 24-hour news cycle. No mass media. No social media. So we didn't hear about everything all the time. A lot of it fake news or algorithms or bots, and there wasn't this constant goal to make us feel awful.
And it does make us feel awful. And there's compassion fatigue and just exhaustion. And I have to watch this myself because I can tend to feel like a victim, like that system, this and that. And I know that it's not true, but injustice really gets under my skin and I resent it. And that does not help me, of course, or anyone else. I have to continue to remind myself that I'm not a victim, and feeling bad for people does not help those people. And being poor does not help anyone else not be poor. And resenting injustice does not bring about justice.
Yeah. So we talk about these things only to help you not be at the effect of it, to put it on your radar so you can recognize it, so you know how to not take it on, to name it, to delegitimize it, so we can lift it off of your shoulders, off of our shoulders.
Yeah. So this is something else from Sarah Landon, that the question was about health. And with my recent health issues, I was interested in her answer. And she said, when you're in pain, it gets your attention. It gets a lot of your attention, but don't let that distract you from your wholeness and the magnificence that is you. You are not your body. You are way bigger than your experience of your body. Press into your magnificence as a human being.
Wow.
And that was so freeing to me.
Yeah.
And I pulled back from that. And I thought, as we look at the sickness of our human family, the places that we really need to heal, to recognize the illness of our astronomical inequity, that we need to bring equity to. This society illness gets our attention. It gets a lot of our attention, but it's not that, but let's not let that distract us from the bigger picture of our human magnificence. We are not the inequities we experience in the world. We are way bigger than our experience of the world. And there are countless amazingly good things to happen too. That are happening right now. We can press into our collective magnificence as a human family.
Yeah, well said.
And I love that. And the universe loves you. Let it. The universe loves you, so let it love you. God loves you. Let God love you.
Let's keep our eyes clear, beloved, so our own magnificence and our place in the universe, so we don't get lost in space. So let's drop the weights off of our shoulders of others' opinions and turn that fresh face of yours, that beautiful face of yours, to the light of a universe that loves you, of a God that loves you.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. No more so-called deadly sins.
Yay.
We've made it through. They're not deadly, they're Dudley. Okay.
They're duds.
They're duds. We hope you are feeling free to be you just as you are. So, yeah. So next week we're going to get back to talking about the core of all of this, and that's the teaching of contempt.
Yes.
And how we can break free from all of it and soar with our free hearts.
Yay. We love you.
We love you. Bye.
Bye.
Would it be okay if I were to tell you that I am afraid someday? So I call you up and you call me down. Would it be okay?
You've been listening to the FreedHearts podcast. We have extensive resources and vibrant, inclusive community for you at freedhearts.org. Please just come say hello. If you have questions, comments, or suggestions for the podcast, just email us at podcast@freedhearts.org. Audio engineering is provided by Luke Johnson. The music is provided by Hannah Cottrell, our daughter, the Grammy-nominated Saint Sinner. You can find out more about her and her music at heysaintsinner.com. Please share, subscribe and follow on your favorite platform, and support us if you can. Thanks for listening.